I ended our relationship when she chose to remain a virgin, a decision that, in my eyes, signified a commitment to a path that didn't include me. During our breakup, she decided to explore life with someone else, and now she's come back, asking for another chance to rebuild what we once had. I'm a 23-year-old guy who met my ex-girlfriend when she was 21 about 3 years ago. We both lived on campus at a university, though in separate dorms, and after a few months, we started dating. Overall, our relationship was happy, yet there was always one issue. She grew up in a very religious household. Her dad is a pastor, and while she'd made it clear to her family that she didn't share their beliefs, they weren't thrilled, even though they ultimately accepted that she needed to choose her own path. I still think that religious mindset affected her, even though I come from another background entirely. I never took my religion too seriously and have since moved away from it. Our relationship was pretty normal aside from one major difference. Early on, she told me she was a virgin and wanted to stay that way until marriage. This wasn't strictly about religion. She wasn't devout, but she really wanted to avoid disappointing her dad. We explored other forms of intimacy, but we never had intercourse. I was a virgin too when I started dating her, and in a way, I still am if you only count intercourse. Watching everyone around me have typical sexual relationships made me more resentful over time. I couldn't figure out why she wouldn't have a full sexual relationship, even though I never pushed her. I just thought, while I'm struggling through university and low on cash, marriage isn't on the immediate horizon. Last year, while I was wrapping up my final year at school, she landed her first professional job. Her program was shorter than mine, so she finished university earlier than I did. Despite being younger, she had already experienced success and raved about the impressive guy she met at work. That left me feeling pretty insecure as I was still a broke college student, and her insistence on waiting for sex intensified my frustration. We ended up arguing over it, and eventually, I decided our goals were too different. I felt it was time to call it quits, even though it broke both our hearts. She cried a lot, and I felt awful afterward. It's now been almost 6 months since we broke up, and we haven't really been in contact during that period. I didn't date anyone else because I was completely focused on finishing my degree. I've finally graduated and am about to start my first professional job. Recently, she reached out and asked if we could meet. I hesitated at first, but figured, given our long history, I owed it to us to listen. When we met, she said she had missed me terribly these past 6 months, and she wanted to get back together. Plus, she mentioned she was now open to having a sexual relationship. I asked her what had changed, and after a bit of uncomfortable probing, she admitted that she had a brief fling with an older guy at work while we were apart. It wasn't something she rushed into. He was very persistent until she eventually gave in, and she's now ended things with him. She was clear that the situation was consensual, but I couldn't shake the feeling that while I had been waiting years, she felt fine exploring with someone new, even if it was just a short-lived encounter. I asked her if the change in her mind was because she was no longer a virgin, and she confirmed it. I told her I needed some space to process everything. I'm torn. I still have strong feelings for her, and I miss her a lot, yet at the same time, I feel like I was strung along for years. Logically, rekindling the relationship would make sense. I'd finally get the full sexual relationship I'd longed for. But my gut tells me something's off, and I don't want to ignore those feelings. Some folks have been harsh on her in the comments, but I remind everyone that you don't really know her. She's never been some evil manipulator. In fact, she's always been the funny, smart, charming, and beautiful girl I believed any guy would be lucky to have. I'd be lucky too, if I could handle all this baggage. But honestly, I'm beginning to think a clean break might be best for both of us. I know she might later regret our breakup, or even regret what happened with the other guy, but that's not my business. When we ended things, I wasn't expecting to hear from her again. This whole situation has caught me off guard and really bruised my ego, making me feel like the lesser man. I can accept that for now and work on it. I also have some lingering issues about sex from our time together that I need to address. A few people suggested therapy, and I'm considering that because I really need help processing these emotions. A number of comments asked why she was willing to sleep with this guy after a short relationship, when for 3 years she wouldn't have sex with me. I don't have a clear answer. She only said he was persistent. I'm caught between just texting her to say I don't want to rekindle things and probing for more details about what happened, even though it hurts. Sometimes, it feels like I'm just stuck in place. Some have called me immature, and maybe I am. After all, I ended the relationship even though she was free to do what she wanted. But that doesn't hurt any less. I wonder if it might be better to finally say goodbye and leave the past behind. Update 1. Hey everyone. Thanks so much for commenting on my last post. I was blown away by the over 2,000 comments. I really appreciate that many of you took the time to share your thoughts. Fair warning, this update is long. I've been keeping a journal since I was 16, and much of what follows comes straight from it. For clarity, I'll refer to my ex as Ellie. Her real name isn't used here. I want to touch on the comments because so many people provided their insights. Most said I should just move on and end things for good, which I understand. A few, however, suggested giving her another chance and seeing how things go. Some even called me an asshole for breaking up with her because I wanted sex in our relationship or for being obsessed with her virginity. There were also comments saying that my breakup might have made her feel like sex was necessary to keep a guy, pushing her into another relationship. A couple of comments mentioned the possibility of her being pregnant, though there's nothing to indicate that, and even a few extreme voices suggested I hurt her or something even worse. Honestly, some of you need a hug or to talk to a psychologist. No matter what our past was like, I'd never treat her badly. Ellie and I shared a loving relationship for years, and that still matters to me, even if we ended things in a way that hurt us both. To be clear, my issue wasn't about her virginity per se, it was that we never had sex in our relationship. Whether she was a virgin or not wasn't the problem. She chose abstinence, and I respected that. But for me, if she hadn't been a virgin and still insisted on not having sex, I'd have felt the same way. For 3 years, Ellie got everything she wanted from our relationship: love, affection, loyalty, support, and a partner who respected her wishes about sex. Yet there was a huge part missing, and there was no way for us to overcome that difference. In hindsight, I should have ended things as soon as she first said she wanted to wait for marriage. When we started dating at 19, I was naive and had never been in a serious relationship before. I went along with it because I adored her and our connection was strong, so I fell in love, only to later feel stuck in something that wasn't right for me. I've learned from this experience, and I won't make the same mistake again. I need to be more proactive in future relationships rather than just agreeing to what the other person wants. Some comments say sex isn't that important, but for me it is an essential part of a relationship. I understand not everyone feels the same way, and that's okay. Yet I need what I need, and it wasn't fair to expect someone to change who they are. Looking back, I regret waiting so long to act on my feelings. It only hurt both of us more. In the end, our views on intimacy were too different. I chose to break it off rather than keep waiting and hope she'd change her mind. It was a scary move, and I delayed it far too long out of fear of hurting her, but I eventually realized I had to consider my own needs too. That hesitation was my mistake. I've also noticed people commenting that I felt strung along. On reflection, that sentiment is understandable. Ellie had always been upfront about wanting to wait until marriage for sex, and despite having everything she wanted in our relationship, love, care, loyalty, I ended things because I needed more than what we had. I know I hurt her by waiting too long to speak up, and for that I regret causing her additional pain. I foolishly waited way too long, hoping that one day she'd change her mind, but she never did. That was my mistake. I tied myself in knots over something that never actually happened. In reality, she never led me on, and it stung to learn she moved on and had sex with the next guy so quickly after all that time. But she's my ex now, and she's free to do as she pleases. I have no say in her choices. My pain is purely emotional, a bruised ego, really, even though logically I know she didn't do anything wrong. I'll eventually get over it. I feel inferior because she took that step with someone new, even though deep down, I understand that doesn't make me any less of a man. I wasn't perfect either. I made mistakes and have learned from them. I don't regret breaking up with Ellie. I'm convinced it was the right move for me. To give some context, last weekend was the Australia Day long weekend. I went camping in the Grampians for some fresh air and bushwalks with friends, which was exactly what I needed to decompress. While around the campfire, we ended up talking about the whole Ellie saga. Most of my buddies knew her well from our long years together, and they all had a variety of opinions, just like the comments on my post. I even got some good-natured ribbing about still being a virgin. One of the guys jokingly mentioned that there's an expensive bottle of scotch somewhere, waiting for the moment when I decide to let that seal break. All if Ellie never reached out again. There was one question a friend asked that really cut through the confusion. Would I have tried to get back with Ellie if she hadn't reached out first? My answer was a firm no. It became clear I'd been too passive, just reacting to her choices instead of doing what I really wanted. By the time I was driving home, I had already made up my mind that getting back together wasn't an option, until, on my drive, I suddenly got a mobile signal. The network bombarded me with messages from Ellie. In one, she admitted she was wrong for suggesting we reunite, and she revealed that she's now back with Tim. She also apologized for misleading me about how serious things were with him. She described it as a fling when we last met, but apparently, it's much more now. I wasn't happy at all, so I sent a curt reply. Not my most mature moment, but I wasn't in the mood to listen any longer to her excuses. I was shocked and angry that she had lied. It was simply out of character. She tried calling me several times afterward, but I let them go to voicemail. Later, another text came in. Apparently, Tim and she had a fight, and she felt guilty for coming to me. In that moment, I realized I was tired of the drama. Curiosity got the better of me once I got home, and I ended up looking Tim up online. His real name is pretty unique, so finding him on LinkedIn wasn't hard at all. I saw that he's a director at the firm where Ellie works, just one level below partner. His Instagram was filled with travel photos, shots of exotic events, and even a few with an expensive car, plus a few pictures with Ellie in Singapore last November. That confirmed it for me. This wasn't just some casual fling, it was serious. I couldn't help but compare myself to his success. That made me feel even worse about my own situation. I've always been on the lean side ever since my college days, and seeing people like him only stokes that feeling of inferiority. That's another issue I have to sort out. Then, on Tuesday evening, Ellie showed up at my door. She knew I wasn't eager to speak with her, but she insisted she needed to explain everything properly, just to clear the air once and for all so we wouldn't cross paths in the future if that was what I wanted. I let her in, still upset with all that had happened, but hoping to get some clarity. We sat down and talked for hours, and here's what I gathered. She was devastated after we broke up. It took her a couple of months before she even started feeling a bit better. She said she missed me constantly and longed to see me every day. But after the breakup, we both agreed to take some time apart to heal. Then in September, she met Tim at work. Although she doesn't work under him directly, he managed a different team. Tim charmed her almost immediately, asked her out, and even though she worried it might be a rebound, his attention made her feel better. As they dated, real feelings developed, and that eventually led to a sexual relationship. It wasn't a one-night stand. It was something she built up to over time. I asked if he had pressured her into sex the way he did before, and she explained he was extremely persistent. She admitted that she told me one version of the story to avoid upsetting me. She didn't want me to think badly of her. That really worried me. I almost feared for her safety, wondering if it might have been coercion. But she looked genuinely shocked when I brought it up and insisted that she was the one who initiated. Even though I'm not okay with her lying to me, I understand that people can change their minds about their personal boundaries. Yes, I was hurt hearing she was now having sex, but I don't have the right to judge her. She's an adult, and she makes her own choices. At one point, she burst into tears, saying she thought I would hate her now. I reassured her that I didn't, even though I was hurting inside. She admitted that she was sad things hadn't worked out between us and that, after the breakup, she had recommitted herself to the vows she made to her dad when she was younger. But as time went on, that commitment started clashing with the life she wanted for herself. By the time she and Tim's relationship took off, she'd already decided she was ready to be sexual with the right person. I pressed her a bit more about her dad and why she hadn't told him, but she brushed it off, saying he doesn't need to know. I also asked why she even suggested trying to get back together when Tim is not only older, 32, in fact, but also has been with the firm for 10 years. She confided that one day at work, a coworker made a snarky remark about her being just another one of Tim's conquests. After digging a little, she discovered that Tim has a long history of dating younger women at work, especially fresh graduates like her. The gossip around the office is that Ellie might just be the latest in a long line of women he's taken advantage of. That revelation horrified her, and she accused him of using her. They ended up arguing, and shortly afterward, she reached out to me, thinking that maybe we could get back together now that she had taken that step. But by then, I had already cooled off, and she eventually realized that rekindling our relationship wasn't the right move. Over the weekend, Tim called her, urging her to work things out, and she decided to give it a shot. She tried calling me too, but since I was away camping, she sent those messages instead. Ultimately, that settled it. I don't want her back, and she doesn't want me in her life either. We exchanged a few final words about our families and caught up just enough. She congratulated me on graduating, even asking if I'd been out with anyone. When I told her I'd been too busy studying and working at a retail job to date, she laughed and called me a big nerd. She said she hoped we could remain friendly if we ever bumped into each other, but she'd keep her distance out of respect for her relationship with Tim. Then she gave me a hug and left with a soft, "Thank you for understanding." So there it is. Ellie pulled me into her tangled relationship drama, and while I wish she hadn't, at least things are now clear. I'm relieved I trusted my gut instead of jumping back in, because that could have only led to more heartache. I learned that listening to my feelings is key, even if it stings. I still care for her. She was, after all, my first love, and I'll always have fond memories. But I'm done letting her be a distraction. I have a brand new career waiting for me, and after years of hard work, my new job starts on Monday. It feels great to move on from endless college theory to building real experience, and finally leaving behind the poverty of student life. Sure, I might be open to meeting someone new eventually, but that's not a priority right now. Reflecting back, I realized that when Ellie reached out after all this time, it stirred up old feelings, nothing more than echoes of the past, really. The drama she's created is on her, and I'd rather remain blissfully unaware of her personal and romantic life. I don't want details about her rich boyfriend, Tim, or any of their intimate moments. I need to let that go. The Ellie I remember was honest and careful with her word. The Ellie I dealt with recently was different. That's what hurt the most. People change, and so have I. I'm not surprised she's changed. She's working in the business world now, where the rules are different from the strict religious upbringing she had. I've completely stepped out of her life, so whatever happens now is hers to handle. If she ever tries to come back, I'll remind her that we agreed to stay apart, and that'll be it. I'm not in the market for a new relationship right now, no Tinder swipes and no casual hookups. Sure, I'm still a virgin, but I'm after something real, something meaningful. I mentioned earlier that I'm open to the right woman, but I'm not actively searching. Maybe that will change later, but for now, my focus is solely on my new career. About closure, some folks say that our final meeting was only for her benefit, that it helped her find some relief, but it did a lot for me too. Seeing who she's become made it completely clear that we'd never be right for each other. Over the past year, since she started her job, I've seen her shift. The old Ellie was kind and genuine. Now, with all these work hard, play hard attitudes, she's come off as less compassionate and more dismissive. It's obvious she's been influenced by her new surroundings, but that was her choice. As much as I love the old Ellie, I don't even connect with the person she is now. I left things tidy, knowing the chapter was closed. I even made her promise to stay out of my life. And just to be clear, I'm not looking to jump into another relationship. I'm not checking Tinder, and despite my past as a virgin, I want emotional depth, not just physical connection. I might consider dating if the right person comes along, but for now, I need to concentrate on building my career. Update 2: if you remember, Ellie and I agreed to no contact after the drama unfolded, and I even blocked her to help keep that promise. Since February, I've been working as a graduate engineer, and it's everything I dreamed of. I've met incredibly smart people, learned tons every day, and finally, I'm earning a steady salary after years of being a broke student. After finishing university in November, I moved in temporarily with my brother because he had just ended his own relationship and needed help with rent. That was my home when Ellie last tried to see me. But then my brother found a new housemate, and since his place was too far from my job, I moved into a shared house in southeast Melbourne. The place is a bit rough around the edges by Melbourne standards, but the rent is reasonable and there are plenty of bars, restaurants, and pubs nearby. My housemates are fantastic, and even better, I'm seeing someone now. I'll call her Olivia. She's actually the sister of one of my housemates. We met one day at a barbecue when she casually stopped by, and the conversation just flowed. We ended up talking for hours, even after everyone else had left, which earned us a few teasing comments from her brother. I asked her out that very week, and we've been exclusive for about 6 weeks now. It's still early, but the connection is immediate and undeniable. Olivia is smart, gorgeous, and clearly has her own drive, working as an accountant at a major firm. At one of her work parties last month, I unexpectedly ran into Tim. Yes, Ellie's Tim. I had no idea who he was at first. He came over asking for a beer from the fridge. We chatted briefly about jobs and mutual acquaintances until I realized his face was exactly like the Tim I'd heard about. He's in his 30s, works at the same firm as Ellie, and his entire profile screamed success. Travel photos, fancy cars, a polished life. Neither of us brought up Ellie during our chat, but later, while talking with one of the hosts, Jess, I learned he once worked at the same firm where Ellie is employed. It turns out, even in a city of 5 million, the world can feel really small. On the tram ride home, Olivia noticed my silence and asked what was on my mind. I mentioned that the guy I'd just met might very well be my ex's boyfriend. She was a bit surprised. I guess I'd never told her I was a virgin back then. But then she laughed, saying that Olivia and I had already taken care of that chapter. When she asked if I still had any feelings for Ellie, I was honest and said that's all in the past. A couple of weeks later, at a formal charity dinner where Olivia was proudly showing me off as her date, we found ourselves at the same table as some of her colleagues. Everything was going smoothly until, all of a sudden, I saw Ellie, with Tim by her side, standing across the room. It was surreal. Tim even commented that he remembered meeting me at that party but hadn't put 2 and 2 together until now. Ellie looked completely transformed. She'd lost weight, her tight red dress accentuated her new slim look, and her hair was now blonde instead of her natural auburn. She carried herself like a sophisticated, modern businesswoman, a far cry from the poor pastor's daughter I once knew. Despite the elegant appearance, I felt nothing. When she offered me a handshake along with a big, flashy diamond engagement ring on display, I only managed a polite congratulations for both her and Tim. As Olivia introduced us, I noticed Ellie's smile stiffen for a moment, but soon enough, we said our goodbyes. Later, Olivia joked that Ellie might still have feelings for me, but honestly, it doesn't matter. Then, a few days ago, my brother mentioned that Ellie had shown up looking for me. Thankfully, he knew not to share my new address, so all he said was that she had dropped by my old place. The very next day, I got an email from an unfamiliar address. It was from Ellie. There was no mention of her breaking our no-contact agreement, or even an acknowledgement of her earlier visit. She simply wrote that it was great to see me again, that she had missed me, and even complimented the girl I was with. She also reminded me about her wedding plans with Tim next year and invited me to attend. I was frustrated. She was trying to pull me back into her life even though she'd promised otherwise. I showed the email to Olivia, and she encouraged me to think about why she'd want to contact me again. I suspect she might just be looking for emotional support or trying to gauge if things with Tim are rocky. Whatever her reason, it's not happening. I'm in a good place now, with a solid relationship, a new career, and a fresh start. I deleted the email, blocked the address, and even set up a filter to send any message with her name straight to the trash. Ellie may try again, but I made it clear that I'm committed to the no-contact rule. Life is looking really bright now. I have an amazing girlfriend, a cool new apartment in Melbourne's southeast, and a promising career as a graduate engineer. Everything I worked so hard for. I can finally afford things I never could as a broke student, like dining out without worrying about my bank balance. And even though I know some people will say I'm being waffly or too sentimental, this is how I choose to share my real-life stories with you. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, Please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more real, sometimes shocking, stories as they unfold.